Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Hope everybody had a good Independence Day break. Was able to see some family and friends. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Before we get to adoption of the agenda, we do not require masks. We certainly would encourage people to do whatever makes them feel most comfortable. I will be wearing mine. I just heard from some friends who got vaccinated in January, have been very careful, haven't been in enclosed public spaces, and they both contracted COVID. They're recovering right now. So for me, I'm going to feel safest, especially in an enclosed indoor area with less than ideal circulation, to keep wearing mine. We would ask, if you do not wear your mask, that you just try to keep your distance from one another. We've tried to space the room out as best we can to allow for that. And certainly, if you choose to wear a mask, you may do so in chambers. You also notice we're trying to return to some semblance of normalcy. We have our charter officers, or at least 50% of our charter officers, up here at the dais with us. Welcome back, y'all. It's good to have you with us again. We're going to continue sort of a bit of a hybrid Zoom through the month of July, and then by August we're going to pretty much go back to the way things were. However, you will be able to continue calling in and offering public comment through the phone lines as well as here in person. We're going to keep that pandemic perk going. It's been a great addition to our meetings. So we're sort of deliberately and intentionally moving back to a more regular schedule. So with that, we have 3 items on our agenda. This is a special meeting, so there will be no additions or corrections to the agenda. And we'll move to Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess before we get into the adoption of the agenda, I just want to sort of get a precursory discussion on how we intend the week to go. We've got tomorrow's meeting on the millage. Are we going to be receiving budget presentations at that time, or is today going to feature some of that discussion as well?
Mr. Manager?
Thank you. So today, because of a deadline, we're considering the fire assessment resolution. Tomorrow, you will have the budget presentation along with setting the maximum millage rate. I believe your meeting for the GRU budget on Wednesday has been canceled.
That's correct.
Okay, well then I'm not going to be voting for the agenda. I just don't know that we're at that point yet to start making those adoptions.
Okay, Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adopt the regular agenda.
Motion is second to adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-1 with Ariola in dissent. I'm sorry? 5-1. I'm sorry. Yes, Commissioner Duncan Walker is not with us. 5-1. Thank you. I'll get back to the swing of chairing a meeting any moment now. Appreciate you having my back. Okay, so our first order of business, Madam Clerk.
Our first item is the fire assessment, item 201225, preliminary rate resolution. A resolution of the City of Gainesville, Florida relating to the provision and funding of fire services, facilities, and programs in the City of Gainesville, providing for the imposition and computation of fire services special assessments, providing for legislative determinations of special benefit and fair apportionment, describing the method of assessing fire services assessed cost against assessed properties located within the City of Gainesville, establishing the estimated assessment rate for fire assessments for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, providing for hardship assistance, providing for method of collection, authorizing a public hearing, and directing the provision of notice thereof, providing for an application of assessment proceeds, providing for severability, providing an immediate effective date.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Feldman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. This is an annual exercise that the Commission does in terms of setting the maximum fire assessment rate. And I say maximum because it could always be lowered. At this point, you may recall that we had proposed initially looking at $145 per fire factor unit. Our recommendation now is to keep it the same at $133 per fire factor unit. in order to be consistent with our past practices.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, or is there a motion? Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we adopt Resolution 201225.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Santos, seconded by Commissioner Sacco to adopt the proposed resolution. Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any staff presentation on this?
There's not one in backup. I think we have Chief Dixon with us virtually, and Chief Hillhouse here to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, so why is this the recommendation? That's my question.
So we have a special assessment that is set up to pay for the fire suppression services
Where that?
on there. Our recommendation is not to raise it this year because at this point in the budget process, we think we can deliver you a balanced budget without doing that. The way we calculate the fire assessment is traditionally, it hasn't changed from the way we do it traditionally, which is to look at the fire department's budget, pull out the cost of fire suppression services, and then to factor that based upon the type of use. So we didn't think that we needed to have a further presentation on that at this point.
I am of the opinion that I would prefer to see that information in front of me. I understand how the fire assessments have voted on many budgets now at this rate. So without any information, I'm just not going to vote for it. Thank you.
Can I help you with the what information are you looking for?
The understanding for how. Thank you. How we came to decide that this was going to be the settlement. I mean, generally, I mean, we have, in my view, every year we've had robust discussion on GFR's budget, increments to that budget. We often discuss different programs that we'd long to support with that. And so what I'm hearing from the manager is that this is the fire rate that would fulfill that, but I don't have that budget in front of me. I don't have that discussion in front of me. So it's just irregular from the budgets that I've done in the past, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, it might be helpful in the potential trim notes that got put in the backup. It does discuss the different classes of risk and how the fire protection unit would be assessed to them. Anyway, I guess I guess it would have been helpful before tonight if you wanted some additional information to request. It seems like a difficult task for staff to get you information on the night of the meeting. So I'll work better with you and the rest of the commission to try to get information prior to the publishing of the agenda so we can make a fully informed decision. Any members of the public would speak to the motion to adopt the proposed fire assessment at $133 per fire protection unit?
Mr. Mayor, Adam Sousley here. We do have Nathan Scott on this line. I don't know if anybody's in chambers or how you want to handle that tonight.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
All righty. Mr. Nathan Scott, you have the floor in 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, Nathan Scott. So, with respect to the fire assessment fee, I do want to echo Commissioner Ariela's concern. You know, Mayor Poe, it's disappointing to see the commission take such a lopsided attitude with taxpayer money that you just basically, just rubber stamp things as quick as possible. You referenced the backup specifically in response to Commissioner Ariela's concern, Mayor Poe. Last time I asked you a pop quiz about the backup information, you couldn't answer the question. So I find it, ironic in a simplistic answer that you've actually read anything other than just lecturing people. But I am a little bit, I do support keeping the fee the same. I would hope for a reduction given the increases over past years. Certainly that's better than the alternative that was proposed earlier by the city manager of actually increasing the fire assessment fee. But then again, you're just doing things without discussion to justify to the taxpayers what the expense is, why it needs to be 133, why can't it be lower, and so forth and so on. You know, I'm also equally happy that it's not increasing, given the fact that this commission is poised to approve a multi-year GRU rate increase on Thursday evening, which would be the largest unjustified GRU rate increases in GRU's history. So again, we need some fiscal discipline. This budget process, frankly, having followed it for a decade, is one of the poorest I've seen, Mayor Poe. There's absolutely no attention to detail being given, line item review, no substantive discussion by line item of any budgetary issues, no discussion of what's justifying the revenue requirement for GRU's requests and the fire assessment fee request. And you can make all the excuses you want to after I'm done talking, Mayor Poe. The commission videos speak for themselves. So let's not, act holier than thou. I've been through the budget process. I've seen detailed discussions about the budget process, and this year ain't it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Mayor, there's nobody else on the line at this time.
Okay, anybody in chambers wish to speak to the motion? Okay, turn back to the commission. I'll just briefly say that we have not cut any services from fire. We have not cut personnel. We have not closed fire stations. We have not dispensed of any fire suppression equipment. And so while costs have gone up per the negotiated contracts with our firefighters and their expanded responsibilities, we are keeping the fire assessment the same. I think there is a complete logical nexus to that. And without us making cuts to the fire department and fire services, I would not expect the fire assessment to go down. So with that, we will move to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Sacco? Aye. Commissioner Ward? Aye. Commissioner Hayes Santos?
Aye.
Commissioner Ariola? No. Commissioner Johnson? Aye. Commissioner Duncan Walker is absent, and Mayor Poe.
Aye, that motion passes 5-1 with Ariola in dissent and Duncan Walker absent. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Next item is 210035, proposed fire inspection fee modifications with the recommendation that the City Commission hear the presentation and authorize the city attorney to draft and the city clerk to advertise an amendment to the Code of Ordinances, amending the fire fees in Appendix A.
Okay, Mr. Feldman.
Thank you. So we do have a presentation on fire inspection fees because we're proposing doing something slightly different than what we've done in the past. And I believe Chief Hillhouse will walk you through the presentation.
All right, welcome, Chief Hillhouse. Good to have you with us in person.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Actually, if Chief Dixon is on, I was going to let him give the presentation. If we can get that pulled up. If not, then I'm more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
I'm online. I'll do a radio, a mic test. Can everyone hear me?
5 by 5, Chief. Welcome.
Outstanding. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Poe, members of the City Commission, to all our neighbors and community builders. As you can see on the first slide, that is me. I am Joe Dixon. I am Chief of Gainesville Fire Department. May I have next slide, please? So what we're going to go over, we've recommended that there be a change that the clerk of the commission will draft an increase so that we can move to an increase for fire inspections as illustrated in Appendix A. And we're also going to continue to propose 5% biannual increase of all other fire-related fees in Appendix A. And everything is bulleted below. Next slide, please. In regards to the changes, one thing that you notice is that we talk about this being we're now going to be charged. And this is something that we used to do. We're talking about restoring the fire inspection fee for inspections resulting in no violations. Now, one of the reasons it was a great thing for the city to be able to support our neighbors and not charging for that. But as the mayor mentioned, the cost of providing the services that the fire department delivers continues to go up. So this is part of us recouping our fees and being able to maintain a high level of excellence that we do, because one of the things that this inspection program does is allow us to, the number of fires people talk about continue to go down, and that's because of inspection, engineering, and enforcement. And certainly we're going to be looking at in the next slides that the increase, where are we going to absorb this? It's not a big money grab, and you'll see that it really is not that much money, but every little bit helps when you're dealing with budget issues as we are. May I have the next slide? So the one thing is this first bullet is that I want to make sure is clear is that the exception is with the increase beyond the 5% biannual increase. So in regards to any other increases, there will be no increases for property under $10,000. And we'll go over the minimal increases for properties between 10,000, 100,000 square foot, and any other increases. Next slide. So it would certainly make sense that the larger the building or commercial structure, the more systems that are involved, it's going to cost us more money, because just by square footage, when our inspectors go to these buildings, these facilities, it costs more time. And we're trying to make sure that we recoup the time spent in keeping our city safe, keeping our neighbors safe, keeping our community builders safe, by making this basically more cost effective, and the ability to just manage the cost through the program, basically supporting itself. But the point is, the larger the building, most of the calls for service that we get are to our larger buildings with more complex systems. Next slide. So what we've done is we've talked with our consultants, members in the fire service, and we've basically done a building comparison, this is a small building comparison. And in the next slide, what you're going to see is a large building comparison. So you can see the time that it would take to do an inspection at the various buildings and how much is currently charged. So when you think about the average salary of our personnel, this is how we look at, well, are we actually charging what it costs us to do the inspection? So right now, the current inspection fee, for example, for a 3,400 square foot restaurant, taking approximately 1.5 hours to complete, is $88.75, and we're proposing it to be at $93.25, for example. Are there any questions on this slide? Or we'll get to them at the end, but just so people understand.
No questions at this time, Chief.
Outstanding. May we move to the next slide, please? And in the same manner, this is an example of a large building comparison. What we're doing right now, how long it takes us. If we have, you can imagine, almost 1,000,000 square foot hospital at 40 hours to do that inspection, and how much we currently charge. And so if you just look at the rate in comparison to one of that 3,400 square foot restaurant we use, and for 1.5 hours, charging $93, which was on the last slide. For now, this 40 hours that it takes us, and charging $456, and now we're requesting $560. You can see that it's certainly not proportional, but we're just asking for a small increase for our properties where we're putting in this amount of time. But it's certainly, and it's still not totally proportional, but we're just looking for some additional help in helping us maintain the inspection program. May I have the next slide? And what we have here is a comparison with some other jurisdictions. We certainly looked at Alachua County, what they charge. And even though we're looking at other municipalities, other counties, other jurisdictions, we have to develop a scale that works for the city of Gainesville. And that's what we believe that we did, what we're working to do. And may I have the next slide, please? And as we continue to look at this, you can see that it's all over the place. but it should be tailored to the municipality or the county, the jurisdiction, in and of itself. Next slide, please. So with all that we're talking about doing, and again, I want to emphasize that this is not, and certainly as your new fire chief, and it's still relatively, I've been here just about 4 months now, but they're still fairly new. It is one thing that in talking with, this office of the city manager, talking with my staff, is we want to make sure that moving forward, we're doing things in a fiscally responsible manner, and how this was developed and how we develop fees. We want to make sure, we talked about which I appreciate your vote on, and voting on the assessment fees. We want to make sure that we don't do anything right now. We have all the data to support it. But looking at this, and for the inspection fees, for the increase, we're just estimated to now recoup approximately $20,000 more. And it's just an incremental step toward balancing the budget and make use of the time that we're spending and recouping some of the money. So there are no increases for business occupying 10,000 square feet or less, except for the 5% what's already been published, the 5% biennial increase. And next slide. And that's it. And sorry for I've been trying to advance the screen, on my phone because I just came in from another meeting. So I apologize if I feel like I'm a little hyped up, but I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Thank you. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Chief. Commissioner Hayes Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. I move resolution 210035.
Motion by Commissioner Hayes Santos, second by Commissioner Saka to approve the proposed resolution. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Dixon. Maybe I should have known this already, but I'm surprised at how low the rates are, particularly for the higher facilities. The idea that a hospital of over 700,000 square feet, we are currently charging less than $500 for fire inspection is remarkable to me, and not necessarily in a good way. And the comparable cities really, as you say, are all over the place. Comparable municipalities are all over the place, but it seems like that's an awfully low charge given the import of what you're doing. It's a big deal to know that a particularly a large facility, particularly a hospital, is fire safe. And the idea that the only cost we're passing on is, even at the increased rate, $560 is remarkable to me. So thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And before I go to you, Madam Attorney, Commissioner Santos, I think you wanted to maybe modify your.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to modify, I think I said to go forward on resolution. It's not a resolution. I'd like to modify the motion to have the city attorney draft and the city clerk advertise an amendment to the code of ordinances about the annexation of the fire fees.
Was that it, Commissioner? Madam Attorney, thank you. Second or fine with that? Okay. Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Dixon. It's good to see this be brought before the commission for discussion. I think that given the growth that Gainesville's had, particularly with a lot of large buildings, I think it's a good time to review some of the practices that we have taken for granted. So what I'm interested in hearing is, are we going to have sort of a regular review annually now for these fees? Because I understand this was sort of I appreciate your leadership and coming in. I know you've only been here 2 months, but that's a good start already. So why don't we sort of first hear that, and then secondly, I saw the comparisons for other cities. I always find it funny when we try to find comparison cities, because there'll always be one opinion or another as to what are comparable cities to Gainesville. So I'd like to know what other factors in terms of the difficulty of the inspections. I'm sure that hospitals have different requirements for fire safety than other buildings. So if you could just go into that a little bit, I would appreciate that information. Thank you.
Chief?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, and thank you for that, Mr. Commissioner. And as listed on the one slide, I don't remember what, slide 5, is that the factors are certainly going to be the size of the building. That is one. So if you look at the 1.5 hours and divide that into I believe it's $98 that we were talking about. We're talking about approximately $40 per hour for that inspection. We'll just round it at that. So if we were to take the same 40 hours it takes us for the hospital, that would be $1,600. So that's certainly not proportional to the time that it's taking us to do the inspection. And when we're in inspection, even if the type of the use of the building is going to be something. So if it's something that houses hazardous materials, it's going to take us more time to deal with it. If it's a building that is more intricate in nature inside or in the manufacture of something, it's going to take us more time. And the other point that you made is talking about, is this going to be something that is reviewed annually? And that's absolutely. As we continue to look at the budget, I believe in a zero-based budget. And that means that, we have to make sure we review the data and make sure every year as we present a budget, that we present the data that is supportive of the budget that we put forth, sir.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Mayor, that kind of regular review, I'd like for that to happen, not just for fees with the fire department, but really for across the city. I think it's good practice. And zero budgeting is an interesting perspective. So it's good to see different perspectives coming through. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now open it up for any members of the public wish to speak to the motion. I'll start with you, Adam.
All righty, Mr. Mayor. I believe we have Mr. Nathan Scott. Mr. Scott, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Nathan Scott. I want to thank Chief and staff for putting together the presentation. I think it's informative. I do think that cost structure in relation to expenses should be reviewed periodically. I'm not necessarily sure that it needs to occur each year, but periodic review is certainly a best practice to keep the users of services paying the appropriate fee for the necessary services and/or inspections. The interesting point was also made in relation to approximate size of the building and proportionality in terms of the hospital example, rate structure versus the cost of a restaurant per se. It would be interesting to get a little bit more color on that in terms of, again, who's driving the cost and assumption of time and effort required for an inspection of a hospital, I think would be probably more use intense than that for a restaurant. Again, I'll defer to the fire chief on that one, but it would be, if it's marginally more effort and time to do those large scale inspections, then, you could see potentially costs being allocated more appropriately, in terms of increased costs for those larger consumers of larger time requirements, if you will. Restaurants, a lot of them in Gainesville, if that's the average cost, there's certainly a lot of restaurants to inspect, but thought that was interesting. Also think there's something to be said for if you pass an inspection with no violations, waiving a fee. In terms of public safety, there's one could see a benefit and reward for trying to ensure that you're meeting all the city's requirements. I'll analogize it to Little League Baseball back in the day before they gave away participation trophies. Those of us that when we split the team to win in practice, and we won, we got to go to Burger King and we got the Whopper, the fries, and the soda, and the losing team got the hamburger and the soda to go with it, to be fair. But there's something to be said for encouraging good behavior that facilitates public safety. So I'm not necessarily opposed to having a mechanism that waives or reduces the fees if you get an A+, like the current program is. I guess that's being changed to capture cost, and that's not bad. I think somewhere in between might be a better approach, or phase in or rewarding you know, a business or establishment or a hospital that continually passes inspection without violation.
Thank you, Mr.
You know,
Scott.
there might be something that could be done there. Yes, thank you. So sorry for the narrative, but just kind of looking at that's public policy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, that is our last caller.
Okay, anybody in chambers wish to speak to the motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call vote. I'm sorry, it's not roll call vote. Voice. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously with Duncan Walker absent. Next item, please.
Our next item is 210115, discussion on maximum parking rates, with a recommendation that the commission authorize the city manager and the Department of Transportation and Mobility to develop development of new parking fee structure and associated documentation.
Okay, Mr. Philbin.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you're aware, the discussion about parking rates has been something that has been talked about for at least over a decade at this point. On there, we as staff feel that it's time to make a final decision, and based upon where we are with our budget, we wanted to have that discussion with you today so that we can determine whether we're going to include an increase in revenue in the general fund budget or not. Ms. McCready has a presentation that she'll walk you through with regard to what our rates are and what we're proposing and why.
Thank you. Ms. McCready, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. This is my 5th parking presentation. So I don't know if it's up on the screen. There we go. It's a very brief presentation since you've heard most of it before. It's all based on prior studies. Next slide, please. There we go. So basically, we're talking about looking at our data and our prior studies and how are we going to manage parking better. And that includes not only the rate structures, but it also includes how our zones are structured for our neighborhood permit zones, as well as the location of paid and free parking, looking more at demand management pricing, as well as parking enforcement hours. Next slide, please. By looking at this holistically, we are also able to address recent adopted commission goals. We're looking at the city's 2021 community survey. One of the number 2 priority was making it easier to find parking, and then as well as the Vision Zero goals of slowing down traffic and increasing bicycle and pedestrian safety, and then also addressing some of the climate change goals to reduce the impacts of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. Looking at the hourly parking rates themselves, it would allow for better curb management, which then creates better availability of parking. This currently is around 20 cents to 50 cents an hour. We are looking at increasing the parking rate maximum. Currently it's 50 cents an hour is the highest we can go. Rates have not been increased since 2004, 17 years ago. And we are not looking at increasing any of the quarterly or monthly rates in the parking garage. The potential revenue increase on this would be around $225,000 annually. Next slide, please. The hourly parking, when we look at it on street, we're looking at how we would manage it based on demand. So we would be pricing the higher demand areas with a higher rate and the lower demand areas with a lower rate and free. This also includes looking at our surface lots and our parking garage and putting our rate structure into balance based on parking management 101, if you will, where you have your on-street more than your off-street because you want to drive long-term parking to the off-street facilities. Next slide, please. Looking at the neighborhood parking zones, we would look at consolidating zones from 11 down to 6, specifically around UF's campus. This would help with the availability of current spaces and allowing the folks who have permits in those zones to have access to more parking. Right now we issue approximately the same amount of permits as we have permit parking spaces, but because of the way our zones are structured, folks are very limited to the zone that they have the permit for. This would just be looking to rebalance that a little bit. One of the other things that we would be proposing is adding some on-street spaces on Southwest 6th Street between Depot Avenue down to Southwest 16th Avenue. We've looked at this several times. This is a key connection in our bicycle network. It would allow us to put in bike lanes. It would also slow down traffic. It basically extends the existing road section that's north of Depot Avenue south. And we just learned recently that PK Young has moved the entrance to their school to 6th Street, and parents are pulling up and parking on the street to let their kids in and out of the car. So it's creating its own issue that we'd really like to address by adding some on-street parking and bicycle lanes to address some of that traffic. Next slide, please. So by merging the zones and then looking at our rate structure itself, we looked at UF's structure, what they're charging. We also looked at the local residential multifamily housing that's in the area and what they were charging for monthly parking fees. Ours are significantly lower. So we would be looking at bringing it closer, not as close to market, but still, still a lot more than we're charging today. And that could increase the revenue approximately another $225,000 annually. Next slide. And that's the highlights.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McCready. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Ariola?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could go back to the slide that had the layout of downtown with the parking garage and the streets, I think that would make my line of questioning go easier. That's nope, not the question. One Adrian. It's slide 5, I believe. That's the one. Nope, slide 5. There we go. Nope, almost. Slide 5. It says hourly parking on it.
There we go.
Thank you. So and I guess I'm just asking to explain the theory on how you come up to some of these prices. Is the idea that by having higher prices for high demand spaces that people who are more likely to desire longer term parking will be using the less expensive spaces? Is that the idea?
Well, you want to drive long-term parking to your off-street, so the parking garages and the surface lots. So these are 2-hour spaces.
Okay.
So you want higher prices in order to ensure there's always 1 to 2 spaces available on a curb, on a block face. And that way there's always parking available for folks who are trying to get to the businesses they're trying to get to.
Okay.
And the higher demand, you typically price it higher.
Right, and that's why the reduction in the garage rate.
Correct. And we're not talking blocks and blocks. We're talking very
Yeah.
few streets.
Great.
And then you reduce it less on the next street over, and then it's free the next street over. So you still have ample free parking within a reasonable walking distance.
Okay, thank you. My last question was regarding to the neighborhood parking, which I think is 2 slides down. Thank you. So I'm just a little bit, I guess my real question is, those are some pretty significant changes, and I know that's mostly because of the merging of the zones. Is that really what's behind the, that's a pretty stark increase in my view from the permit fees, from what people are currently paying. This isn't the right slide, sorry, one more. Go forward in the slide, one more. There it is. Nope, there. Okay, so yeah, the jump there from any of those current to the proposed, for me, that's just a bit stark. It's more than what I'm comfortable doing, unless there's a really good reason.
Oh, so we did it based on market. This is still significantly lower than the market rates. Monthly is about $100 a month.
Gotcha. Market compared.
This is annually.
Right. That's an annual cost. So the market as compared to what?
That's the residential off-street parking that exists in the Midtown area.
Okay.
As well as what UF charges for their permit parking. We did comparables for the area.
Gotcha. Well, Mr. Mayor, it's my opinion that UF overcharges for parking, so I don't know if that's the standard that we want to chase. But I appreciate the work. I've we've been having this discussion for a while since I've been on the commission, particularly with the parking garage and the off-street parking downtown. So that part I'm in agreement with. I don't know that I'm in agreement with the neighborhood parking. I think of see a bit more of a nexus, but I appreciate the work. Thank you.
Mr. Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm supportive of moving forward on both these initiatives for a multitude of reasons. You highlighted earlier, these will help with Vision Zero, helping to, I think, draw funds in those areas. Greenhouse gases is a major impact. This is one of the things that we can do as a city to help with lowering greenhouse gases, both charging the real kind of cost of a car, but also, because we're currently subsidizing it, but also people are circling for spaces and looking for spaces. That's a big issue that happens, and this helps reduce that. And then lastly, one of our biggest, I think this was this the number one concern people had? Like, it was close to the top, but number one concern, number two on the back, people having ability to find parking. And the studies have shown that by doing demand parking, you then get 1 or 2 spaces per block, which when someone sees a parking space, now they believe that there is parking. Even today you can go 2 blocks over and find parking, it's all about perception, and this helps deal with those perception issues. And I think will help alleviate the number 2 concern of our city in helping to find parking. I also believe that the surface lots are expensive in that area. When I worked at UF years ago, and I think I paid $50 a month or something like that to park, and that was a cheap rate that I was able to get. Parking rates have increased from there, and I think the issue we have is that we should charge what the actual cost is of what people want for parking in that area. And currently, we're significantly lower. I personally think the UF charge is too low because the parking should meet how much parking spaces you have should be the demand that's met with that. If you don't kind of meet that, then people are always looking for parking and complaining. But if you have the price meet what you have in terms of available supply, you have an equilibrium. I think one thing we should consider is where these money goes towards. I think one thing is Vision Zero. I think another is lighting in these areas too. If we're charging for parking, that means there's more people in that area, which means there's probably a higher demand for lighting and pedestrian lighting too. I think parking improvements and then litter pickup as well in these areas. These are areas that if there's a high demand for parking, that means there's a lot of people changing in and out, and there's probably a higher likelihood of litter in that area. And I think this allows us to capture that cost in that area. So I would support us moving forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. McCready. So I'm just going to touch the UF parking thing. When I was a student, they told me I wasn't getting a parking space. I was getting a hunting license, where they vastly oversold. So I appreciate that it's kept like within 100 here. So I respect that, and I appreciate
We're
that.
trying.
That said, it's right that UF charges to be that close a lot more. So I don't think the increase as an annual increase is that much more to live within walking distance, but still maintain a car if you want that, which you probably don't need if you're 4 blocks away. That said, I do have a question. It says that for Homestead 1 year and Homestead 3 year, the fees are different. Can you explain to me what the difference is?
That is was done by ordinance, and it's just if somebody wanted to pay for 3 years at one time instead of 1 year at a time, because it's so low, they can pay for 3 years at a time.
Okay. My other question was, it goes back to the hourly parking with the color-coded maps. The hot pink zones that are being converted, are we adding spaces on those, or was the bigger line, the consecutive line used to just cover the whole area?
Yes. So the thicker lines are showing where we would be charging for parking, where right now either we're not or they're only permit parking.
But it's covering the little pockets on that road, not
Correct.
increasing down
It's
the
making it more contiguous.
Okay. So no added parking.
Sorry?
So no added parking.
No, we're not talking about it.
Yeah, otherwise, I'm in support of this. Over a couple of years ago, someone mentioned it, and I noticed it as an intern, that I could park for free the whole time I was down here to go to the courthouse, and it was in front of the courthouse, which was wild, but I had to pay to be in the garage, which is suffocating and terrifying.
Right, which is exactly opposite how we
So
should be
every
doing it.
other city in the world does it the reverse. I'm glad that we have come to our senses and changed it. So I am fully in support of this. Yeah, I will agree with Commissioner Santos' suggestion that we look at using at least some of the funding for lighting in these areas. I think that's a perfectly good use, and I think that was also one of the concerns that we had before. I don't know if Mr. Mann in the back knows what number that was, but I do recall that it was one of the larger concerns was lighting and safety of those sidewalks. But otherwise, I'm fully in support of this, but I have other colleagues, so I won't make a motion. Thank you.
Mr. Ariola?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think the best way to explain my consternation for voting for the neighbor, I'm ready, I would happily make a motion, but I have a feeling I'll be asking to split and vote against the neighborhood hourly as opposed to the hourly. I support the hourly parking, but not the neighborhood changes. And it's because since rates haven't changed in 17 years, you know, just at the period of time we're at now with people's economic struggles, a lot of people who are paying for these passes are probably not ready to take on this additional burden of cost. And so I don't think that it's the right time for us to make such a dramatic leap, even if there is a rational nexus for it. I think that we should at least be sensitive to some type of an incremental change. So whatever motion gets made, I would ask that we split out the neighborhood parking.
Okay, Commissioner Santos?
Thank you, Mayor. I move staff's recommendation.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Santos, second by Commissioner Ward. You know, first of all, we'll learn if it's priced too high if we don't sell all the passes. I mean, that's simple supply and demand. I have a feeling that all of these passes will sell. They'll sell quickly. I still think it's underpriced, both in the neighborhoods and on street. I agree with the reduction in the garage rates. I think the more that we can drive towards the garages, the better experience everybody's going to have. I think folks that get used to parking in a garage, it becomes part of the routine. We have two garages that are very conveniently located to both ends of our downtown and the Innovation District. We are charging significantly less than what the actual market rate is. And so, yeah, I support this. I view this as an incremental change. I think that in reality, it should be much closer to, I mean, we are heavily subsidizing people who buy these passes. They are getting a deal at the expense of everybody else that lives in Gainesville. So, you know, I would love to quit subsidizing it altogether and charge a true market rate with some carve-outs for hardship allowances if that's our concern. But anyway, I view this as a good first incremental step. So with that, we'll open it up for public comment, and we'll start with you, Adam.
Alrighty, sir. Thank you. We have Mr. Nathan Scott. Mr. Scott, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, Nathan Scott. So for the record, I am not in favor of parking fee increases. Again, leave it to the City Commission to continue to bring financial hardship and raise fees and taxes and GRU rates on hardworking Gainesville families and neighborhoods. Not the time, Commissioners. Yeah, I heard the suggestion about dynamic parking prices. I'd love to see that run through the equity toolkit. You know, why don't we just give parking away to those that are most able to afford it? You know, that kind of seems contrary, that suggestion as a whole, to everything the City Commission allegedly stands for, but, you know, hypocrisy is abound. But I am not in favor of increasing the parking fees. There's been a lot of discussion about it over the years. Fees increase, neighborhood passes, decals, whatever. We don't care what UF does, okay? It's the City of Gainesville. We care because they should pay their way, but they don't. But you guys need to curtail your spending, and this is just another money grab. So that's why these fees don't need to be increased. Parking is parking. Yes, got better things to figure out, like fixing our roads, fixing our sidewalks, cutting our GRU rates, but none of that resonates with you guys because you're insatiable spending addiction with taxpayer money, and this is a money grab. I do have one final comment that's somewhat related to this in relation to, you know, funding that may be available for enhancements that may relate to parking and other things. But notice that your ratings of your proposals for the APA, I guess Mr. poll work stated that the proposals, not ratings, are made public. Hey, we live in the world of public records, guys. That seems to be a public records violation. So I would hope that's not the case, but I'm not sure how you can make proposals and not ratings available. I don't think ratings have a statutory exemption under Florida law. So that's the city attorney to comment on that and or take a look at that. That's prominently featured in your emails, because I think that's inconsistent with the transparency owed to taxpayers and inconsistent with state law unless there's a statutory exemption that would otherwise apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Mayor, there are no other callers on the line at this time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in chambers? Okay, back to the commission. Madam Attorney, this is to authorize you to draft the changes in the resolution. Is that correct?
Staff will bring forward the resolution with whatever, yeah.
Okay, so we'll move to a vote. The first vote will be for a change in the fee structure. In other words, not the neighborhood parking fee permit. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Duncan Walker absent. The second part will be for the neighborhood portion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
That motion passes 4-2. Johnson and Areola in dissent and Duncan Walker absent. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Public comment?
Okay, any members of the public that wish to speak on any items that were not on our agenda tonight may come forward now. We'll start with you, Adam.
All righty, sir. Yes, Nathan Scott, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, so I'll make this short. Again, I think the meeting was for a special meeting. I wanted to illustrate the tale of two cities, if you will. County Commission, very fiscally responsible, unlike the Gainesville City Commission. They're able to do their budget in one meeting, basically get everything done, get everything approved. You guys dragged the process out. There hasn't been any real line item by line item discussion of anything substantive in any of the budgets, particularly GRU and city government as in past years. Again, you guys are going to go over the top and say, I don't know what I'm talking about. Knock yourselves out, guys. Get out the videos. We'll take a look. We'll prove my point, just like I proved my last point. But again, I wish the city would have some semblance of fiscal responsibility. Fiduciary duty comes to mind, and actually just stop spending money that you don't have. I mean, you guys are poised to implement multi-year GRU rate increases on Thursday night in a resolution that represents the largest unjustified multi-year rate increases in GRU's history. And you guys are all doing it with a straight face. But there's been no justification to show or demonstrate the revenue requirement of GRU justifies those rate increases. Not how it happens in the rule, in the regulatory context. So again, very disappointing. If you guys want to go raise rates on everyone, be my guest, because that's going to come back and haunt you. Your lack of fiscal responsibility. It didn't have to be this way, commissioners. I mean, you raised rates and you cutting the GFT, and you thankfully avoided 2 debt downgrades on Friday. But at a cost to hardworking Gainesville families to be avoided. Could have cut the GFT more substantially in a single year. You would have avoided a GRU rate increase in FY22, and you could have certainly mitigated the majority of any rate increases by deferring AMI for 1 or 2 years. But you guys have champagne taste on their budget, and you don't care what hardship you impose and financial harm you impose on Gainesville and its hardworking families and GRU customers. Also want to state for the record in my limited time that I tried to ask a question at the UAB meeting the other night. It was a very straightforward, intelligent question. However, the chairman of that UAB, Mr. Wes Wheeler, I've never, as a citizen, former state utility regulator, GRU customer, GRU ratepayer, been treated with such disrespect. You guys don't want to hear from the public. The public's not entitled to ask questions on an agenda item, nonetheless. It wasn't even public comment. It was an agenda item. Nope, can't ask the question. Nope. So I don't know what kind of banana republic we're living in here,
Mr.
but
Scott?
I would hope that the chairman your appointed committees
Thank you,
have
Mr.
more
Scott.
respect for the
Mr.
public
Scott.
and listen to public input. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Mayor, that was our last caller of the evening.
Okay, anybody in chambers wish to make any general public comment items not on our agenda? Okay, we'll close public comment, on to member comment. Commissioner Ariola?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be pretty brief. So I hope everyone got good rest over the last 3 weeks, but it's been pretty trying for the city. So I really, really want tomorrow's presentations to be very robust. I want us to get to a budget that reflects the priorities of the entire commission. But the reason why I said what I said earlier is because the last budget presentation we had, we showed that we didn't have a balanced budget, at least in the total of increments that were offered. And I understand we're not going to get every increment, not either from what was recommended by departments, but what was asked for by the commissioners, and that's annual budget processes. I understand that. But my concern is that in that there were key items from the commission that weren't included. I won't speak for other commissioners, but for myself, one of the big items was to have a discussion on funding a Department of Youth Services. And I really want us to have that discussion because I'm going to try not to get emotional, but our children are really suffering right now. We've had a lot of violence, teenagers involved in that violence. We had a mass shooting at the American Legion, and it was gang-related violence as well. And someone lost their life, and I really, really care deeply about including, I feel like it's an emergency. I feel like, and it's all across the nation, it isn't just Gainesville. All across the nation we're seeing increases in violent crime, and that's been reflective of the stress, the psychological damage that this last year has done to us as human beings. And I really, that funding means a lot to me. I included it in my American Rescue Plan recommendations because I think we are in a period of emergency. And so I want us to get there, and that's the most important thing for me this year.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thanks. Just following up with David's comment, can the city manager shed some light about the Department of Youth Services and how that is going to play into our budget discussions in terms of timing?
Absolutely. So we are working on what the Department or Office of Youth Services will look like, where it would fit within the organization, how it would, what functions it would have, because it's more than just, stripping a program out of GPD or, trying to combine some programs that Parks, Recreation, Cultural Affairs have, and looking at expanding what we do as services. So we've put together a interdepartmental team to work on that creation. The answer to that, or our recommendation, will not be available by tomorrow, but this presentation that you have shows that that's still an outstanding issue and that we will need to address it at the no later than the September meetings where you will adopt the final budget. So it is one of the primary focuses on our radar screen. I just don't have a number or an impact yet because I don't have a recommendation to give you at this point. They've been meeting every other week for, I believe, well, since the motion was made, I think back in May, if I recall. So we've been working on it. It's headed up by Assistant City Manager Bowie, and again, it's a cross-collaborative effort, and I believe we even have other charters involved in trying to figure out what that will look like.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you give us a little bit more detailed information about...
Your mic's not on.
Oh, thanks. Can you give us a little bit more detailed information about how you, the dates, about when that's going to come back to us and the dates that we'll be making decisions about this? Because you said by the September meeting, but are we going to have the information far enough in advance where we can make an informed decision about whether or not to include youth services in this fiscal year?
So our recommendation hopefully will be out to you in August, so that, again, it can be incorporated within the September budget.
Thank you. Commissioner Ariel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern with that approach is that tomorrow we'll be setting a tentative millage rate, and then on Thursday we'll be setting the rest of the main levers, as we've referred to them in terms of revenue for the government. So my concern here is that once we receive those recommendations, we will have already set the parameters for annual spending for the fiscal year. And so for me, that August is just too late in terms of making that decision, because it's already going to be a super tight budget year, as we've discussed. So if tomorrow we set a tentative millage rate, and then on Thursday we set the rest of the main levers, if there's not room for this, and it seems as though there's not room for it, I would be really, really disappointed. So that's my main concern, is just the timing of this all. All of these decisions being made the week after recess, to me, just seems very, very expedited. And I would really, really prefer for the commission to have a full discussion on where that fits into the organization before we make those types of decisions.
Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't disagree that more time to think about it is better, but what it means is that we're going to have to make choices about what we include and what we don't include, which is a healthy exercise for us. You know, it means that if something comes back at one number and it's a priority for at least 4 of us, and it doesn't fit, we'll have to figure out what goes. And I don't enjoy that, certainly, but I'm also not prepared to raise taxes for one specific program at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Ariel.
Thank you. I think I'll try to rephrase what I said. Yeah, there's always those types of discussions in terms of trade-off, but if we don't even have a number when we're setting the millage rate as to what we could debate, it, in my view, constrains that conversation that we would have at a later date, because when we're setting the main levers, we don't even have a number, which was the intent of the original motion, was to get a framework that we could actually vote on. So that's my consternation. And I understand the budget making process in terms of us supporting, but I just want us to have that information in front of us before we make these main lever choices.
Commissioner Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. The direction the commission gave us in May, there's not to create a whole new department from scratch. A number I want back is actually a real number that actually really, what will this whole department do and encompass? And that does take time to create something completely from scratch. I think 3 months to create something completely from scratch is still, hopefully it's something that's that can be brought back that's fully fleshed out, but that's still not a lot of time to create a whole new department. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So an option that we have, and I'm not absolutely not supporting this option right now, is to offer a higher millage rate. This is we're setting it for the trim notice, not the actual millage rate. I don't know that I would support an increase at this point, different than will be asked for, but we do have that option tomorrow. It doesn't commit the city of Gainesville to a higher millage rate. It sets the parameters for what's possible tomorrow.
Commissioner Saka.
Mr. Feldman, do you know when we're getting our strategic plan placemats back or booklet?
So it's our intent to bring you the new strategic plan for a vote at either your August 5th or the August 19th meeting on there, and then we would develop the new placemats. I believe we have the old placemats around somewhere. I'll work with Ms. Ganey on finding them. But
my memory's a little faulty, and it could just be because it's booting back up to be here. For the updated plan that we walked through, did it have youth services anywhere on it? Recall any of the priorities being related?
Honestly, I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, that was, thank you, Mr. Feldman. I agree with Commissioner Hay Santos. If you're building something from scratch, a whole department, not just one position, it takes more than a couple months to do it, especially if you're pulling in information and advice from other charters, from other departments, from other programs in the area. It's not something that can be done. You can't fast track it. That said, I also think given our budget constraints and what we are trying to do, it's important to stick to the priorities that we agreed to. Not everybody got every single priority they thought was most important, but we got mostly everyone here agrees on some of these priorities and the rest of them. And to my recollection, youth services was not part of that. We had, best community services, we had other things like that, but as good and as helpful as something like this could be, it's not a pre-agreed priority for the city. So I'm not going to pause everything else until we get numbers for this department if it's in the works. If we get it this year, if we get it next year. But we have other really important, equally important priorities to move forward on that we do have numbers for that we can work on. So that's kind of where I stand on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Ariola.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one of the first things I did when I got elected was to look into some of the youth gang-oriented violence that was going on in the city. Called a meeting with the chief of police and some of his officers and the city manager, and this has been a priority for me for 4 years. So this isn't something that the idea sort of was worked on part and parcel. Commissioner Ward was also helpful in asking for some of this research. So I sort of culled these ideas together, working with my colleagues. So this is something that I've been passionate for a really long time. So I did not just put this, 2 months ago in terms of how I've been advocating for this. And I understand that it takes time to develop new offices and new departments, but at the same time, when decisions are made, once decisions are made, that's sort of it. So, I also don't consider our legislation as limited to the workshops that we have with strategic planning. We can do a lot. We can, to use a phrase that I don't always like to use, but we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I really am deeply concerned about what's happening with our kids right now. That violence is really tearing at people's families. And so what I am just asking is that be included in our consideration for this year's budget, and that you, my colleagues, my honorable colleagues, that you give it that due consideration based on its merits, not on some notion of whether or not this was placed into the proper strategic plan document, because I have been advocating this every single year that I've been on the commission without fail. And so that is why I'm bringing it up. The timetables is why I'm bringing this up at commission comment, because those votes will be taken tomorrow, and then we will sort of set the course this is it. This is the very beginning of the rubber meeting the road for the budget. So I don't think it's inappropriate for me to raise these concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Hill, I don't think it's inappropriate at all to ask the question. It's a healthy discussion to have. As you know, as you mentioned, I support the concept as well. We just may end up having to not do some other things because I really want this to happen as well. While we're talking about the issue of violence, I would like us to have Chief Jones come talk to us. Mr. Mayor, I don't want to try to cram it onto this week's agenda, but in the not distant future, I would really like to hear from Chief Jones about where we are, what we're doing, what we can do differently to address this emergency. As you mentioned, Commissioner Ariola, it's not just a Gainesville thing, it's an everywhere thing, but we have to deal with it in Gainesville. There are families in Gainesville who are losing their lives, who are losing the lives of loved ones. It's a danger, an emergency for our community, and I would like to hear a presentation from GPD sooner rather than later about what we can do to be helpful to address this. You all know, I believe, the first thing we can do is something that the legislature will not allow us to do, and that's to be harder on guns. These children are not being beaten to death. They're not being, nobody's throwing rocks at them. They're not being shot with arrows. They're being shot with guns. But we're not allowed to have that discussion, or allowed to do anything about it at least. So the question then is what can we be doing differently that is within our grasp within a relatively short period of time? So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So quick update, we got additional grant money. We now have an additional 6 interrupters that will be soon out working with our youth to very specifically find, address, and divert folks from use of violence. A youth services department's a great idea. It's still an idea, even if we were to fully fund it, whatever it is, on October 1st, it's going to take at least a year to advertise, hire people, train them, incorporate them into the rest of the organization. But this is not as complicated as I have just heard it presented. If you're worried about not enough money being there for this department, advocate for a higher millage rate. We can always back off. We have got to send out a trim notice. That's the only reason we're having this discussion right now. We have a statutory requirement to send out a trim notice to people. We can always bring the millage rate down from that. So if you're worried about not having enough money in the budget for that or any other priority of the commission, advocate for a higher millage rate, and then if it ends up that we don't need it, we can back off it before our September meetings. Conversely, we can choose to eliminate other programs or significantly cut other programs because we view them as less of a priority as youth services. So there's, I don't know if I'm the only one that heard one of our neighbors just say they admired the county's budget process because they did it in one meeting. Right? We've been talking about this since January, and we're going to continue talking about it until September. We've got lots of choices and lots of options. None of them preclude us from doing anything, and none of them lock us into doing anything other than what's already committed through bond resolution. So, we'll continue to work towards getting all that information. But the bottom line is, if any of you believe that there's not enough money to fund all of the things you want to do, advocate for a higher millage rate, and that will bring in the additional revenue to do those things, and then we can always back off later. So we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. I'd like to thank Sergeant Mazuka and Corporal Castor for being with us tonight and protecting the people's house, and of course always Miss Malden for keeping us so fresh and so clean in the month of July. With that, we are adjourned.